Let's talk about one of the most quietly insulting traditions in modern work culture, the company-wide email. You know the one. Subject line, a little something to show our appreciation, complete with an exclamation point, because apparently what you're about to read is supposed to excite you. You open it, and for one brief, beautiful second, your brain goes somewhere it shouldn't. You know, places like, maybe it's a raise, maybe it's better health insurance, maybe, and I know this is a stretch, it's actual time off? But then you read the rest of the sentence. We're so excited to announce Pizza Friday, or Bagel Day, or Wellness Wednesday, which is somehow always a 15-minute Zoom about breathing hosted by someone whose job title includes the word culture. Or the executive favorite, a stress ball shaped like the company logo, so you can squeeze your frustration directly into the brand. But to be totally honest, it feels insulting, because they're treating grown adults, people with rent, groceries, car payments, and actual responsibilities, like children who can be calmed down with a juice box and a sticker. And the uncomfortable truth is, these little appreciation gestures usually have nothing to do with appreciation. Most of the time, they feel like distractions, a way for your employer to perform and act like they care without actually paying for it. So, to really understand why this bothers people so much, you have to look at how disconnected the people planning these events often are from the people receiving them. And what's interesting is that the disconnect usually isn't malicious. Most of the people organizing these programs probably think they're doing something positive. They see low morale, burnout, frustration, and disengagement, and they genuinely want to help. So no, it's probably not because they don't have friends. It's probably not because they hate their families. And it's probably not because they wake up every morning looking for new and creative ways to annoy employees. At least, hopefully not. The problem is usually much less dramatic than that. They're just often so far removed from the daily reality of the average employee that they end up solving the wrong problem. You know, problems like what food to have for International Food Day when employees are worried about rent. Or like when you're worried about healthcare costs and management is worried about the color on the branded water bottles. And when you're wondering how you're going to afford groceries next month, management is debating whether this year's Appreciation Week should include donuts or pretzels. It's not that they're evil or as evil as you think, it's that they're trying to improve morale without improving the conditions that are hurting morale in the first place. And somewhere in every company, there's a committee, aka the Fun Committee. Nobody remembers volunteering for it, but it just exists like a tax. And every few months, the Fun Committee gathers to brainstorm new and exciting ways to avoid discussing compensation. And this year's lineup might include a taco bar in the break room, a raffle for a gift basket nobody asked for, full of products from companies that sponsored the gift basket industry. Casual Friday, as if the other 4 days require employees to dress like they're attending a funeral. And the crown jewel, a framed certificate signed by someone who has never spoken to you, congratulating you on 5 years of dedication. Seriously, 5 years, and they couldn't even spring for a frame with real glass. When executives stand in front of a room, hand out cold pizza, and talk about valuing the team, it shows just how little they understand what people are actually dealing with. Because workers don't need pepperoni slices to survive inflation, they need more money, more time, and a lot less stress. But with most companies, they want the image of caring about employees without taking on the actual cost of helping them. And that gap between the image and the reality is exactly where the resentment lives. Because people are trading enormous portions of their lives for these companies. Hours, energy, and mental focus. Time away from family, from sleep, and from themselves. And in exchange, management hands out a $5 lunch and calls it generosity. It's the corporate equivalent of breaking up with someone and offering them a coupon for a free breadstick. And that creates a strange, quiet kind of resentment. Not loud or dramatic, but a slow realization.
because deep down, workers start to sense they're not being treated like valuable human beings, and instead, they're being managed.
There's actually a term for this kind of thing in psychology, the idea that people respond more to the appearance of being noticed than to any real change in their conditions. And companies have learned how to use this to their advantage very well. It's often cheaper to make someone feel seen than to actually change anything about their situation. Think about it. A banner that says, "You make this place great," costs about $14, whereas a 3% raise costs considerably more. So from a profit-thirsty company perspective, it's no wonder as to which one shows up more often.
And when you compare these appreciation gestures to what people are actually dealing with financially, the whole thing starts to look almost absurd. While companies are organizing Spirit Week and handing out branded fleece vests, rent keeps climbing, groceries keep climbing, healthcare premiums keep climbing, often literally subtracted from the same paycheck that just bought everyone a slice of pizza, all while your wages sit on the sidelines patiently waiting for some kind of attention.
I mean, come on. Employees don't secretly dream about a company-branded water bottle. Nobody has ever laid awake at night thinking, if only I had a tote bag with the logo on it, everything would make sense. But your employer never fails to toss a bag full of toys your way when they want to remind you of your value. What people actually want is almost embarrassingly simple, and I'll name a few. Enough breathing room to live without constant low-grade financial anxiety humming in the background like a fridge you've learned to ignore. A raise that keeps pace with the world getting more expensive. Healthcare that doesn't feel like a second job to navigate. And time off that doesn't come with guilt attached, like a library book that's overdue. That's what real appreciation would look like. But a lot of companies choose the cheaper option because pizza costs less than paying people fairly, and gratitude, it turns out, is one of the few things you actually can buy in bulk. And over time, this kind of culture quietly trains people to accept less than their worth, not through any single dramatic moment, but through repetition. You learn to smile through the awkward team-building exercise where everyone has to share a fun fact about themselves. You learn to act surprised by the donuts, even though it's the third Donut Tuesday this month, and at this point, you could probably identify each donut from its texture. And you learn to nod along in the meeting where leadership thanks this incredible team for its resilience, which is often just a nicer word for doing the work of two people because the third person quit and wasn't replaced. And again, keep in mind, none of this is necessarily anyone's evil plan, I think. Often, the people running these events genuinely believe they're doing something nice. That might be the strangest part of all, how a gesture can be completely well-intentioned and still feel hollow to the person receiving it. So then, here's the question worth sitting with. If you actually picture the scale of it, the years, the hours, the mental energy people pour into their jobs, and then picture the size of the thank you that usually comes back, does the math ever really add up? Of course not. The math is not mathing, and if it doesn't, why does it keep working anyway? And maybe that's the question worth asking yourself. Not just why does my company do this, but why have I kept accepting it? Because at some point, the pizza stops being insulting and starts being a reminder. A reminder that nobody is coming to fix this for you. Not the fund committee, not the culture officer, not the executive who signed your certificate with a printed signature. Some people sit with that feeling their whole career, but others decide to do something about it. This channel is about the second group. So tell me, what's the most insulting employee appreciation moment you've ever experienced? Drop it in the comments. I have a feeling that stress balls and coloring books might be at the top of the list. And as always, stay off script.